like the co-founders have been operating in a way where they've had to do it out of survival mode and passion up until this point. So like figuring out how to operationalize where you're including people, but also making sure that they feel comfortable with you making decisions or like moving things forward without them having to do all the things anymore. I mean, it's definitely a process.
Welcome to Talk Tuesday, a webinar series where we explore what it takes to kickstart new projects, launch new products, and create the right conditions for team success. I'm Eric Gorman, founder of Wiley, an agency that helps teams innovate faster with less risk through our sprint workshops and training. We help teams get aligned, eliminate unproductive meetings, and make rapid progress using our interactive, repeatable sprint workshops. Skill up with our training at wearewiley.com. And now to our guest. It's my great pleasure now to introduce my special guest and close friend, Alexis Jones, Director of Creative Production at Odele. Welcome, Alexis.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, I'm super stoked to have you. So you and I have known each other, I think since around 2010-ish, 2011,
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
that.
Might even be
Is it?
2009,
Ooh,
2009
okay.
or 2008 at this point.
I thought
Yeah.
you might have a better memory of me than me because I'm a little fuzzy sometimes on the past stuff like that. But you and I, along with your hubby, Phil Jones, who I also interviewed recently, we all went to Europe together. So, casting a knowing look there. I had a really interesting and fun time there. You and Phil were at my very awkward wedding proposal and helped execute that plan, which was lucky for me, went well. I have a better half, Chelsea. Um, you're also really kind and generous and a very, very talented human being and one of my favorite people on planet Earth. So it's an absolute delight and privilege to get to talk with you today.
Well, the feeling is absolutely mutual. I'm always glowing whenever I get the chance to talk to you or get to talk about you to other people.
Oh, well, thank you. So, that feels so good. Yeah, let's talk about you now. Let's talk about your upbringing. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I am number five out of six kids. So have a large family, and I was raised by my mother, who was born in Colombia, South America, and my father, who grew up outside Chicago or in Chicago. And yeah, it was an interesting upbringing. There was a whole lot of us, and I would say that my parents really emphasized the importance of being independent, an independent thinker, as well as someone who is a hard worker, and that excuses do not cut it, and that you need to be good to your word. So it was. I always tell Phil or other people, like, whenever I was growing up, and this was before the internet, we would ask a question. Either I would ask a question to my siblings, I would ask a question to my parents, and it could be about anything. It could be about, like, what does this word mean? Or do you know anything more about this country? And the response would always be, that's a great question. You should look it up. And so learned very early on. Great to be curious about things and go find the answer instead of someone giving you the answer, because you're going to be able to round out, your perspective a little bit more by pulling from different sources. And then they would always ask, all right, where
Oh,
did you get that information from? So
oh, that's pro parent.
yeah, so, really honing in on like being critical about where you're pulling information from and is it reliable? And that really like was incorporated throughout all phases of, my career, my personal life, just being thoughtful and asking questions, but then also being open to finding the answers and being, you know, discerning about where that information was coming from and if it was reliable. So, yeah, and then like school was always emphasized, going and doing or like being able to have good grades. Perfection was always emphasized, which I have feelings about as an adult, but that was it was a very high standard that we were all held up to as we were growing up. But it was it was interesting, but at the same time, it was funny and fun because my dad is specifically is a very playful person and does a lot of wordplay and just goofs around. And I definitely have noticed that myself, as well as the majority of my siblings, have all picked that up. So we are professional to a certain extent, but then we also make sure to infuse humor and goofiness into our interactions with folks.
I love getting to ask these questions about, you personally and how people grow up because, I know you very well, but at the same time, like, I don't know that I've heard certainly not like probably maybe slices or bits and pieces, but just did you kind of tell that story? And like it's like, well, yeah, it makes perfect. So that is you. And so
Yeah.
describe your upbringing in that way. That's really fascinating. Okay, so that's yeah, I feel like I want to like go off script and just talk about your, your personal bio. But anyway, we'll that'll be for another conversation maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
So, fast forward, like, well, tell us like where did you go to school and maybe that'll be a lead into like where you ended up making the choice to go into the role of producer and
Yeah. Oh man, it was quite a journey. I would like, I'll even start further back into high school. So, being number five out of six, my parents were older. And so my dad retired while I was still in high school. And we ended up, he wanted to move to North Carolina after I had finished my freshman year of high school at the high school that my four older siblings have all gone to. There
wow.
was like our name was known. My father was an orthodontist in the community, and all of my siblings have gone through the school. So it was definitely like there's a sense of pride to be able to live out that experience, like my siblings did. And then that completely changed. It was my younger sibling and I were the last two in the house. And so we ended up having to relocate to the South, to North Carolina. And
I'm selfishly glad.
silver lining. It was a tough couple of years until Charlotte. But yeah, so we ended up moving and I had to start all over sophomore year of high school. And what I wasn't prepared for, I mean, it was all new. And we grew up outside Chicago, so it was much more of like it was a suburb, but still very much that more urban feel because of the proximity to Chicago. And then from going there to Asheville, North Carolina, where it is anything but, especially at that time.
Exactly. It's changed a lot.
It's changed a lot since then, but we were
And
there living on the side of a mountain, 20 minutes away from, the majority of amenities. On a good day, if you can like really hustle through the mountains. And then ended up yeah, I didn't realize I had a Chicagoan accent until I moved down there and people were making fun of it and making me pronounce things. So I think like looking back as an adult, I have regrets in that I didn't enjoy what all that Asheville had to offer as
mm,
far as hiking, climbing, even just the Southern way of life. It was more ruminating in the fact that I was deprived of the experiences of my older siblings.
there for
Um,
a teenage kid.
yeah, but at the same rate, like it taught me so much about being open and being willing to put myself in uncomfortable situations, knowing that the long term hopefully it'll pan out, even if, and also like no matter how different you might feel from other people, you have more in common than you think. And it's easy to focus on the differences. But if you focus on what connects you and makes you human, you can, really forge friendships with people that are vastly different than you and challenge you in ways that it's healthy to be challenged. So all that to say, like, found myself in North Carolina, ended up going to App State for undergrad. And I say App State because I still want to say Appalachian State instead of Appalachian State.
Yep.
So regional dialect
Uh-huh.
really doesn't go away once it's established.
Yeah.
And then I got majored in general psychology with a concentration in natural science because I love the sciences. I love human psyche. I like in another world, I would have been a clinical psychologist. Like that was what I was interested
Oh,
in
wow.
doing. But there were other plans. So ended up, I tried getting into grad school immediately from undergrad into a PhD track for clinical psychology. And I had graduated undergrad early, so I was like, all right, we're doing this. Let's go in. I met Phil. We had moved in together, and basically I told him, I was like, hey, if you're serious about us, then we need to get married before I start grad school because I'm not going to have time for like this relationship thing, and I'm not going to have you move around with me if I don't know that we're gonna like be a thing or not.
You got plans, man. You're either on board or get off. Don't waste my time.
The
He made the
irony
right
was
choice.
I was also terrified of commitment. So I don't know why I was like, this is the plan. You're either coming with me on the plan or you're not.
Of course, luckily Phil made the right and only choice that can be made. Yeah.
Yeah. So he ended up we lived in Charlotte, and the plan was for me to go to grad school for clinical psychology. And that year I got waitlisted across all of the
Oh,
programs.
man.
And even though I was top of the wait list of one of the programs that year, everyone accepted, which was
Oh,
not something that typically happened. And
really?
so,
You know
yeah,
that. Wow.
and so I like had a crisis of like, what am I doing with my life? What's next? And had to dig in and figure it out. And fell into like really being interested in public health and what it takes to, support the health of communities, whatever health is. It could be so many different things with public health. Um, and so shifted gears and started applying for programs for a master's of public health and only chose schools where Phil would have career opportunities because we were looking to move. And it was right around this recession, like just starting the recession. And he was walking away from a full-time gig to go freelance without any job prospects. So, University of Minnesota was the top contender, cost of living, the program was amazing. And there's a whole, like, it's a very unsuspecting hub of creative
Hmm.
agencies and innovation that we had just no idea about. And so we ended up here for me to go to grad school over at the U.
I didn't know that until you guys moved up there and started like really looking into it. I'm like, holy
Yeah,
cow, yeah, it's a
it,
huge hub.
it's
Design,
wild. It's so
creative.
wild.
Yeah,
Yeah, everyone always just focuses on the cold, but man, there's like so much happening here.
100%. Yes.
Mm,
It's an amazing place to be for your field. Okay,
yeah.
so you've made this big decision
Yep. Made
to
this
uproot
decision.
your
Went
life.
moved our lives, went
Yeah.
to grad school at the University of Minnesota, and was at the tail end of my program. And I was doing alcohol policy research, and it was not particularly fulfilling for me. It it was interesting in that moment. I was really reflecting on, okay, I went and got this advanced degree, like went into the program to study this. I'm nearing the end of the program, and I don't know that I actually needed this for what I wanted to do.
Interesting.
And the reason that I thought that I needed it was because it was really drilled into me by my family that the only way that you can make a career is if you get a master's degree or some sort of doctorate or professional degree beyond undergrad. And again, I find myself like I'm doing alcohol policy research. I'm in a cube by myself. There's no like sense of community within the program that I was within the research program that I was facilitating that I really missed. And then a lot of grant funding was drying up because it was still weren't quite out of the recession. They were cutting budgets. And I just really started questioning if this was the right decision for me. Um, and so I'm talking to Phil about it, and I'm just like, I don't know, I think I made a bad decision. I wasted all this money when if I wanted to just like teach kids how to grow produce and, be healthy and like introduce different foods into their diet, like I could just do that.
Hmm.
And like I don't want to have to justify my job based on whatever grant that I can get. And I admire people who do that. It's just like I needed a little bit more security for myself in that moment. And I'm sure there's like a million different ways to go about it, but at the same rate, I was looking at what the future held for me and what I was interested in, and really started questioning the path that I started down. And so talking to Phil, he had just recently gotten hired at an agency because our health insurance was about to run out since I was finishing up my program. And we both had pre-existing conditions
Ah.
because that wasn't fixed yet.
Hmm.
And so like, yeah, we got turned down by the same insurance that was covering us because I had a bike accident and had hurt my shoulder and was getting PT. The bike accident was a year prior. I was riding my bike, being physically active. I was wearing a helmet, so I didn't have a concussion or anything like that. And I was doing PT to prevent any complications of issues, and was rejected because I had sought care, physical therapy within the last 6 months, and I needed to show that I wasn't getting care for at least a year before I was eligible for the same insurance that I was
Oh, it's stupid.
already enlisted in. Yeah, it's
Oh,
like
insane.
it's maddening
You're doing all the
how,
things right.
yes. And I'm just like, yeah. And to think that, I could go on a huge tangent.
Oh,
Healthcare
yeah.
system
Yeah.
messed up. Um, so so Bill got a full-time gig to get us health insurance, and he had started working with individuals who he was like, I don't know, I feel like you might do well as a producer. There's this position called a producer that I work with, and they do things and think about things the same way that you do.
Mm.
And the way that you help me with my ideas and stuff, I feel like this could be something interesting for you. And I was like, huh, okay, I'll look into it. I don't want your help.
That came up in my interview with Bill, and I love that about you. And it's totally like straight line to your upbringing, right? Like in
Yes.
independence in you. And I love the fact that you're like, nah, I'm good. I'm just gonna go do this myself. I think,
Exactly. Exactly. I was just like, you know what, if he's in the industry already,
yeah,
I want to be able to do this and make a name
yeah,
for myself that is completely independent from him.
exactly. You don't ever want any doubt that you got like a help me, hand up from your spouse. Like that's not
Yes.
you, and I totally appreciate that perspective. I think that's
Mhm.
awesome.
Well, and now I'm like, why did I take his last name? I should have just kept my maiden name, and that way I would
Exactly.
be fully independent from him.
Yeah, there's still
Fortunately,
time.
Jones is a pretty common last name, but still.
Yep. There's still time.
So yeah, so then I honestly I just started uh networking with people on LinkedIn. I found out that you could actually get kicked off LinkedIn if you add too many people you don't know.
Oh,
And so I got my account
geez.
banned temporarily because I was trying to network and add people to learn more about like producing and what it takes to be a producer. And
It's
I
hilarious.
was able to actually like a woman from my program, her aunt was a producer. And she said, she's like, you should connect with my aunt, Jen. And I did. And Jen is still a friend to this day, and she helped me. She like mentors me, and it's just phenomenal just how it all worked out. But yeah, so ended up through networking got my first internship at an agency in town, and they joked that I was the most overqualified intern that they have ever hired.
I I can see, I imagine that would be true. Wow. Yeah, master's degree rolling in hot for an internship. Wow.
So yeah, yep,
Okay, so then
pivoted.
so that's a really fascinating pivot. And yeah, I love that you accepted help, but just not from Phil, which I
Mhm.
again appreciate and it's hilarious and awesome. Um, so tell me, like you spent some time then and kind of, I mean, you rapidly rose to the ranks and excelled, and you were for a few different agencies along the way. I'm curious, like, as you look back on that time, what are some kind of formative things that you learned both on the professional side and personal side? Like, what was that experience, that journey like for you?
Yeah, it's you know, as being a producer, some of the things that I learned along the way were one is a delicate dance as a producer to be tasked with a creative idea or an opportunity and try and balance reality versus pie in the sky, like anything's possible when it comes to timelines, when it comes to budgets. And you can't ever really say no
Mm,
directly, but you have to learn how to speak in a way that explores options
mm.
and tells people the possibilities and shows the excitement for the possibilities, even if it might not be completely possible in the original way. It's all about like iteration, options, and figuring it out together and building the vision together with the what it takes to actually bring it to life. So
It's
that was a tough learning for me initially because I would be like, well, that's not possible. And they're like, well, that's not going to go over well with your creative team and the client.
that's funny. Yeah, it's like Midwestern, tell it like it is, right?
Yes, they're like, actually, no, you cannot do that. That is not okay.
That's
uh,
funny.
um, so there's that, and then like I was trusted very early on with a lot of responsibilities on projects. Like the situations I find myself in as a producer has often been, we don't know how to do this. Alexis, here you go. Figure it out. Like let's see how you can do like what we can do with this. Like again, goes back to childhood. Like I don't know, figure it out. I'm like, "Well, all right, I guess I'm just gonna have to like dig in and try and figure this out."
Wow.
Um, so like remaining curious and open and not shutting down possibility is really important. At the same rate, there's a delicate balance with, especially an agency side, the intensity of advertising agencies and trying to wow clients on sometimes really, really unhealthy and unrealistic deadlines,
Mm,
or just like lack of budgets or resourcing internally, and just being feeling like you're in a position where it's on you to figure it out. And if you don't figure it out, even if it's not explicitly said, it feels like it is your fault. It is a collective effort, but there's so much emotional investment in wanting it to succeed and the pressures of the business to want to deliver the best output possible on time, on budget, even when a creative is throwing a random idea or wanting a random prop or like animal last minute on a shoot. And you're like, I don't know how we're going to make this happen, but whatever, we're going to try and do that.
stories, I'm sure you have.
And so it does take a toll because you're
Yeah.
having to stay 5 steps ahead. You're having to manage budgets and try and figure out ways that you can move things around when things change. And so it's this constant like it being flexible while remaining within the sandbox that you have to stay in order to not go over budget and not deliver late and things like that. It's just it can be very, very stressful. And I'm the type of person where I'm like, but we're not saving lives. Why are we acting like this is life or death when
Right.
it really isn't? Like this is insane.
So true. Well, for the audience, like that doesn't know, can you rattle off like, be braggadocious for a second, rattle off like some of the brands you were helping with just to kind of give people a sense of
Yeah, yeah. So gosh, across my career,
what?
I've worked on companies like Blue Dot, H&R Block, International Delight, Silk, Soy Milk, Chipotle was a really big client of mine. Also worked on, man, where's some other ones like Prairie Organic Vodka was one of my clients as well, who Dean Phillips was my client at the
Oh, really?
time. And so now he's in government.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so just a small United Healthcare was another one, or Blue Cross Blue Shield. I've worked on a lot of brands.
So yeah, so lots of big companies and they're all in their minds, everything is a crisis or everything's the most important thing ever.
Oh
And
my gosh, there's some like,
yeah.
yeah, I'm like, all right, this is not a crisis, but okay, we'll work all night and weekend. And then like the pitch model for agencies, I'm not a fan of. I feel like it takes advantage of agencies and their time and resources. And really, at the end of the day, the employees are the ones that are having to pay for it. At one of the agencies I worked at, the I knew I had to leave after we were pitching for a brand, and I ended up working all week and then through the weekend on a pitch, and we would have reviews at 1 o'clock in the morning, and the ECD would kill all the ideas, and they'd have to restart. And the night before the pitch, I think the team was leaving at like 7 o'clock in the morning to head over to pitch. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, we were shooting a manifesto video that they just whipped together real quick and wanted to quickly edit and drop into the presentation deck before the full team left. Like I was there all weekend, did not sleep all night. And essentially, when everyone left, I'm like, I need to go home because I have to take my medication. Like, I
Oh,
didn't bring my medication with me to work because I thought that I would be able to go home. So,
oh,
and then we didn't even win. Like,
oh, that's crushing.
uh,
How
it's
demoralizing.
uh,
I mean, are there, because that's exactly kind of where I wanted to go is like, I mean, that kind of says the story, right? Like the unrealistic expectations and then you're kind of like left in the ashes and
yeah.
not only having to pick yourself up after a moral loss like that, but also just like the physical toll and mental,
Oh my
like,
gosh. Yes, for sure, for sure. The last agency I was at, I really loved the people that I was working with, and their business model was really focused on in like autonomy within teams. Like you were hired because you're trusted and you're an expert in your field, or you have a lot to contribute and it's valuable to contribute. Producers specifically, there was an amalgamation of many, many roles and also kind of ill-defined. So it was like I was account managing, I was creative producer. I was doing like contracts and business affairs type of work. I was stepping in as like a very rough around the edges strategist in certain situations, or like jumping in and helping with writing or shaping like the creative vision for something. And it was wonderful and a challenge, but at the same rate, when you have to fill so many roles and then you enter a pandemic
Ooh.
and the client that you're working on just signed one of the largest scopes of the year right before we all shut down and had to go home.
Oh boy.
And then all the business dropped off after that because of the pandemic. And it's you and your team feeling the pressure of having to deliver on this work during a pandemic, during the George Floyd uprisings, because that happened in Minneapolis at the same time.
Yeah.
Um, and then, like, when I hear of people who have been, like, went through the pandemic and had a drop in work and were, didn't have a job, or the clients dropped off and work was slow. That never happened for me because I was working 60 plus hours a week. I was filling needs within the agency, like staffing and helping on subcommittees. And then also we were doing supply runs. We raised, I think, like $11,000 for folks. And because families couldn't, like people with kids couldn't go help with supplying neighborhoods in need after the uprisings because of the pandemic and they had kids, Phil and I were also doing that on top of it because we don't have kids. And so I was like, well, we have the means to be able to do that, and people are entrusting us with all this money. Let's also make sure we're doing that. So like a lot was happening and going on, and I was definitely overcommitted in a number of ways. And also too, like the isolation of the remote working and the inability to collaborate with your colleagues and think through really complex problem solving projects and situations together and riff was I came to realize after the fact that when you're working remote and you don't have those interactions that fill your cup in that way, it's truly yourself. Like you are the colleague that you are going to spend the most time with.
Hmm.
And I was really, really critical, like the negative self-talk of I'm not doing enough.
Wow.
This isn't right. This could be better. I messed this up.
Mm.
I'm not as smart as everyone else in the project. I should be like contributing more. I need to be more thoughtful about the solution. And um, it it really had a negative impact on me to the point where like I was super depressed. I was doing a great job of like, you jump on a Zoom and you're like, this is great. All right, team, let's do this. And then I get off and I'm like crying by myself in my office. I've like had insomnia. I was averaging 3 hours of sleep a night because it was just a lot. Um, and it got to the point where I was having a lot of physical issues. I was like mentally just not well and was really, really hard on myself. And it got to the point where I had to take a short-term leave from work. Um, and no one knew. No one knew that I was struggling with this until it like started showing up during calls with some of my closest colleagues. And I'm like, hold on a second. I'm like, ooh. And so, and honestly, it took so many people, like my care team, some of my closest friends at where I worked, like other producers I work closely with or strategists I work closely with, that I was open enough to share what I was going through. And Phil, they're like, you need to take time. Um, and so I only allowed myself a week initially. I
That's
was like,
not that's not your
yes,
name. It's not who you are,
no,
right? It's to take time
yeah,
and
yeah,
pause. Like you're just like, no, I can do it. I can do everything.
yeah. I'm like, I can't let everyone down. I can't let everyone down. I'll do a week. And then the physician I was talking to was like, you need 3 months. I was like, no, I'll do 2 weeks. And then, and then she's like, okay. I'm going to submit for short-term disability for you because you need 3 months at minimum. I was like, okay, I hear you. What about three
Oh,
weeks?
I love the negotiation with this position. Yeah, that's so hilarious. Oh,
Yeah, I was like begrudgingly agreeing to even, I think I got to the point where I was like, okay, a month. I will reassess after a month. That seems like plenty of time. Yeah. And no, ended up taking the full 3 months and really went to town on trying to like work on myself in order to correct some of the unhealthy behaviors that I started adopting through my career. And honestly, that carried over from a lot of the expectations placed on me growing up as well.
so yeah, this kind of like pivotal moment and burning yourself down to the wick. And at what point was the transition made to Odele? Because I know you had done some work with them from the agency side, I believe, or
Hmm.
independently, and I
Yeah.
think they came knocking and courting you. Smart like that. When did that happen? That kind of transition to the present.
Yes. So what I ended up doing is that after I leave, I came back to the previous agency that I was at, and I was very vocal about where I was, what I had been through, what I had been struggling with, and the need for fostering connection with one another at the company I was at, but also to recognize that so many people that I was working with are very high performers. And I could see that the system in which we were operating within, both from the pandemic and then also just like workplace culture considerations, that um, a lot of people ended up coming to me expressing that they were struggling.
Isn't that crazy how
Yeah.
that happens? Like no
Uh,
one's saying the thing
no.
that everyone's
Yeah.
struggling with, right?
Yes. And so like I had posted something on social breaking down exactly what I had gone through, what I did. And then when I came back, like the first 2 weeks was just a bunch of one-on-ones with people at the company where people were like unloading what they were struggling with and like what, not knowing how to move forward. And so me being the person that tends to overcommit and like take on emotional responsibility of everything, I'm like, I'm gonna fix it.
A natural, if unrealistic response. That makes perfect sense.
And so for like I ended up staying at that place probably for another year, year and a half.
Wow.
And I was a squeaky wheel of like, these are the things we need to focus on. This is like really important and blah, blah, blah. And I would be so curious to talk to some of the leadership over there if they felt that way, but I felt like I was being a squeaky wheel. And I ended up helping with a lot of like helping the company offsites that we did and coordinating all that. Like it was a really amazing benefit that they offered for a short time. And I was a part of the team that planned it and helped make it happen. And it was really meaningful and important. But then as things shifted, it was a lot of kind of like putting a band-aid over a huge crack in a dam
Hmm.
or like trying to patch it with tape. It wasn't actually fixing some of the core issues that were there. It was doing something in the service of what they think might help a little bit, but then as quickly as it was a benefit, it was taken away. Because it was a very big financial investment for one. So it became clear that like my I valued the trust that I earned from so many of my colleagues. Like I was the type of person that people felt comfortable being vulnerable with because they knew that I would champion them without divulging any information about who it was or like any identifiable information. It was more about pulling the nuggets forward of the things that I was seeing and then advocating for change. But I knew that I wasn't able to fix any of the issues because honestly, like I wasn't a partner. The sphere of influence, I'm not very good at like collectively selling in something and getting people excited. I'm more one-on-one interactions um and also too, I just like I couldn't do the churn anymore. And so
Yeah.
I decided to leave completely and go freelance. And so I ended up resigning and I gave a month notice to help with transition and to finish up some projects. And Phil had just started, he finally got a full-time gig at Meow Wolf. So again, health insurance provided by somewhere. Thank goodness. And he had been, the person that was freelance for the majority of the time that we've been up here, and he bopped around quite a bit. And like
He owed you
he oh, he owed me big
many a
time.
one.
Like I got to the point where I was like, I need you to get a job or I am leaving you because I cannot do this anymore.
Yep. It's like that
I was
other
like,
conversation.
oh, I'm like, I'm sorry, I am broken right now, and
Yeah.
I need my turn. I need my turn. And
Right.
so he ended up getting that gig, and so I went freelance. And actually, I there's a strategist, Dipanjan, that started the same day that I did at the last company I worked at. And him and I became fast friends. We joked that it was like work wife, work husband situation. And Britta, his wife,
Uh,
ended up connecting with Phil when he was at one of the companies he was working with and she was consulting, and they became fast friends and they joked about being work wife, work husband situation. And so we ended up grabbing dinner um, when I was first thinking about leaving the agency I was at to go freelance. And Britta, who is one of the co-founders of Odele, was like, you need to come work for me.
I am not at all surprised by that. It took what half of one dinner to realize.
Oh my gosh. And she's like, I need you to connect. I want to introduce you to
Oh,
our new chief growth officer. She's a friend of mine. You would love her. Like I've got benefits. And I was like, Britta, I love you. Also, I don't want a full-time job. I was like, I am leaving because I need to reset and like take time for, okay, I get it. We can freelance you.
figure this out.
Yes. And so legit, like and Britta knew all too well like the environment in which I was leaving because Depangent had been through the same experience.
Oh my
And
God.
so she knew all the things to say like you need to take time to for yourself if you like only want to start off a couple of hours a week for freelance. It's totally fine. Like I want you to take care of yourself first and foremost because what you're coming off of was intense and there's a lot to unpack there. And so I started freelancing with them right pretty I think within like a month of me going freelance part-time up until like throughout 2023. Um, and then as we were nearing the end of the year, Kim, CGO over there, pulled me aside and was like, I want you to work for us. Like, I would love to hire you full time. And I was like, that is so kind of you to say that. I'm freelance for a reason because I don't want a full-time job.
Hmm.
And then
Good to feel
Britta called
wanted.
me up. Britta called me up and she's like, hey, I get it. Like, you don't have to be full-time if you don't want to. We can do like
Wow.
4 days a week. We can, like, you don't have to come on full-time. And you know what? if you start full time and you're a month in, you're like too soon, we
Wow.
can
That's
roll it off, and you know what, no harm, no foul. I still love you. We're still going to be friends. Like it's just shampoo. She always says it's just shampoo. And I want you to take care of yourself first and foremost.
oh, that's amazing.
And yeah, and I was
Hard to say no
like,
to that, right?
I know. I was like, damn it. They got me.
Yeah.
And so what me knowing thyself, I knew that I couldn't do 4 days because I'm never just going to do 4 days. So I took the full-time position.
So
So yes, started first of the year, full-time gig. Yeah, and it's been great. It's been a challenge, but it's a different type of challenge than any of the other places that I've lived at or like worked at thus far.
so give me, and I know we're going long, I think, if I'm halfway keeping track of time, but like if you're willing to stay on for another minute or two, I would love to
Yeah,
like,
I don't have a hard stop. It's
okay,
really
good.
about,
Perfect.
yeah.
Awesome. Like, how's the landing been? What's your role? It sounds like it's 180 degrees from the past environment that you were coming
Yeah.
from. Like, just give us a lay land of like the company,
Yeah.
a little bit of
Yes. So, what's really phenomenal about Odele specifically, the product specifically, is so it's three women started it. Um,
which is
Lindsay, Shannon, and Britta, and they all came from like CPG, you know, products. Britta and Shannon specifically worked on another brand, hair care brand, and saw how it was made, and they knew that they could do it better and make it more affordable. And so really like what's phenomenal about Odele is it's almost like a, yeah, this is Bowie.
oh,
Um,
I don't think I'm
it's
being personal.
yeah, he's a nut. But so they over engineered like this product. It is so high quality, it's so well formulated, and they wanted to make it accessible for everyone. So the price point is reasonable. I think it's like 11.99 or 12.99 available at Target and Ulta and CVS and different locations. We're on Amazon now too. And they also like selected the scent so that it was more gender neutral, so that it can people felt comfortable across the gamut of their product. Their bottle was so intentionally designed to be more gender neutral and just a beautiful bottle. And then they're thinking about hair types and textures. And it's a whole like there's so much thought and intention that goes into every step along the way that it is impossible not to get excited about the opportunity. And it's still very much in startup mode. I mean, it's a small company in Minnesota. I think like I was maybe number 12 that was hired.
Wow. Are you up to
And yeah, don't quote me on that. I'm not sure. I know it was like sub 15.
what are you up to
um,
now in terms of employees?
we just hired two new people, so we're slowly growing. Yeah, so it's under 20 easily right now. But right with the startup mentality, like I'm stepping into a role where I'm doing a lot of project management, production, but I'm also trying to figure out systems for the company as well. And it's very interesting and also a challenge because we're stepping into a company where three women have really had to like take on the bulk of the work and just do everything all the time. And now as you bring in more people, you have to figure out, okay, well, how do you start operationalizing
Yeah.
more people who are all very competent, capable, motivated individuals when, you know, it's been like the co-founders have been operating in a way where they've had to do it out of survival mode and passion up until this point. So like figuring out how to operationalize where you're including people, but also making sure that they feel comfortable with you making decisions or like moving things forward without them having to do all the things anymore. I mean, it's definitely a process.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so like I right now it's almost it's a little bit like my last role in where I'm not a traditional producer where I'm solely focused on like bringing creative ideas to life. It's like working with agencies. I'm like a client to agencies right now, which is bizarre. And I probably empathize way too much with them being on
Right.
the other side.
It was turned finally.
Yeah, so like right now, like I'm leading a website overhaul for Odele where we are bringing their website, making it more secure, making it more easy to update with on the back end with content, and also just enhancing the visual design. And so I'm working with a designer on that, I'm working with a development partner on that. I'm also helping them at like trade shows and bringing like working with vendors to build out a booth and like making sure product gets there and you know like all the bits and pieces that go into bringing that stuff to life. And it's going to change as we bring more people on. My scope may get more narrow, and that just allows me to go more deep into figuring out the processes and like helping bring the creative vision to life across all marketing channels. So I'm really excited about being along the ride, along with them as they like grow and scale and evolve as a company. It's completely different for me from where I've been.
That's amazing. I mean, at the same time, it's like it's different being operational stuff, but it's still problem solving and dealing with people problems, right? Like
Yeah,
right? And you're
yeah.
that's your strong suit. So I'm not
Hmm.
surprised that you're in that role. That's really exciting.
Yeah,
Interesting. Okay. We I wanted yeah, there's a lot more we could talk about. I'm gonna maybe we'll have to just do another conversation at some point, but
sure.
let's transition and end us out. What are you just a couple more questions.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you're curious about or exploring or pursuing, maybe even outside of work at the moment?
Yeah. So one of the things that I picked up I started during my leave was ceramics and
Oh,
throwing
that's great.
pottery. Hmm. And
That's
so it was, it's like the perfect hobby for me as a perfectionist because it
mm,
forces me to fail a lot and it forces me to not get attached to the outcome because there's
oh,
so much that can go wrong along the way. And so
love that.
I ended up getting a wheel and I have like a little setup in our basement now where I don't have a kiln. I just practice throwing. I just practice trimming. I go through the motions of, you know, recognizing if I'm having a good day or a bad day, or like looking at the process of creating something and using it as a mechanism to play and just be curious about how things can look or feel different if I do something different this time or that time or try something new. So it's been really fun and it has honestly helped me like reduce my anxiety a bit because it's almost adopting that mantra and applying it to other situations like don't get married to the outcome. Things are going to mess up along the way. It's just doing the best that you can about mitigating how bad the mess up might be.
Man, I think I need to take ceramics now. That's good. Speaking to me in so many ways. Sounds amazing. All right, last question. How can we keep up with you and Odele?
Well, so for Odele, like we're posting stuff on Instagram all the time. The handle is Odele Beauty. And I'm leading updating the website a bunch. So if you want to see the stuff that I've been doing,
Pop on there.
I'm uploading all that stuff
Awesome.
and
And
leading. Yeah, we've got product launches coming in 2025. So like creative that's coming out of there. I'm gonna have been updating a lot of that stuff or
well, you know what
leading the charge
Alexis is
on
up
that.
to. Follow what Odele's
Yeah.
doing.
Yes, yes. And then I've got, you can find me on LinkedIn, Alexis M. Jones. It's also a very generic name, so good luck finding me. And then I'm also on Instagram as well, Alexis Jones 32. But I don't update as often anymore. I'm more of a lurker these days.
That's okay. I can relate to that. Well, Alexis, this has been just a truly, I joke with people that I interview, I'm like, this is therapy. It's been very therapeutic. I am so appreciative of your time and your generosity and telling your story. You're an incredible human being, and I'm really lucky to have you in my life as a friend. And I'm just always impressed by you, and time with you is always so well spent. And then we got to do it more often because I having this conversation makes me realize
I
I
miss
miss you. I
you.
know. But we're gonna have to do this more. Maybe not interview style, but or
Yes.
just a phone call or hey, maybe we can I can
Let's
get
plan a trip.
yeah, that'd be fun. So yeah, we'll figure that part out. But thank you so much for taking time. It's been an absolute
Yeah,
pleasure to talk to
this
you.
has been a joy. I always love our conversations. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. All right. Well, we will see you next time. Thanks everyone for listening in. Bye-bye.
I'm Jake Knapp, and I'm the creator of the Design Sprint process. I'm the author of this book, Sprints, and I am here at the Wiley offices in Charlotte, North Carolina. This right here, if you were thinking about maybe doing a design sprint with Wiley, this is where you would be at this table, probably, unless you do it at your office, which is totally an option. But right here in this space with a whiteboard, with a bunch of paper and pens, basically, they're going to help you think through a big problem, get it started, and get a solution tested really rapidly. That's the whole idea with a design sprint. I'd highly recommend, if you're thinking about it, that you do give Wiley a chance to your project. I've worked with these folks a couple times, and they always exceed my expectations. I always do things a little bit better than I could have imagined ahead of time. They're also really nice. So don't tell them I told you that. I try to, keep it cool, but they're super nice people. Anyway, best of luck to you, and try Sprint.